right. All right. What's going on, y'all? It's Jay Myrax of ultrawest.com. Um, I know it's been a minute, but here we are again, back with another stream on YouTube. Man, I just want to tap in as always, Um, lots of changes in my life and a lot of changes to my setup. So I know it's been a minute. I wanted to here we are again, take some time to just connect with the community on YouTube. See if anybody gets on. I know it's kind of early in the day and it was as always. So some of y'all will just have to catch what I got to say. Changes back in my life and a lot of changes to my setup. So you'll catch the replay to so we are kind of take some time to just connect with the community. So yeah, see if anybody gets just wait a little bit to early in the day and catch a couple people in here. Thanks everybody for tapping in with me on this Sunday. I know there's a ton of different things you could be doing right now with your the replay with your life, but I appreciate you tapping in with me nonetheless. So yeah, and just wait a little bit if there's any problems with the stream. Catch a couple people in here. Thanks everybody for tapping in with me on this Sunday. I know there's a ton of different things you could be doing right now with your on the ball here with your life. Audio still doubling here on the screen. Tapping in with me nonetheless. So yeah, let me know if the audio is still doubling here. Catch a couple people in here. Should be straight. Thanks everybody for letting me know otherwise. Sunday. I know there's a ton of different things you could be doing right now. All good now? All good? On the ball here with your life. Audio still doubling here on the screen. Live? Yeah. I appreciate you letting me know. Where you from? Case Town Biz. I'm assuming you're from Oakland, but where you from, man? Thanks for tapping in with me. Sunday. I know there's but yeah, so different things you could be doing right all now. Good now. It's been a lot going on in the studio for me these days. So, I've made a lot of changes to where you from. Case Town Biz. I'm assuming you're from Oakland. See where you from, man. Kind of discuss some of the changes I've made and also just kind of tapping with the community, man. So, but yeah, so Seattle. Okay, that's what's up. Is the audio still doubling by the way? Studio. Is it good now? We good to go now, or do I need to make some changes still? Where you from? No, Case Town Biz. I appreciate you. See where you from. Audio is still kind of discuss some of the changes I've made and also just kind of tackle. But it should be straight. But yeah, so I was getting audio Seattle. Okay, that's what's up. Is the audio still doubling by the way? Studio. Is it good now? We good to go now, or do I need to make some changes still? Where you from? So Case Town Biz. I appreciate. Cool. So what's new? First of all, what's new in the studio? It should be straight. But yeah, so I've made quite a bit of changes since we last. The audio still doubling by the way. Since we last chatted. Now we get to go now, or do I think the last time I need to make some changes still? I did a stream was in June. Still doubling. Still doubling. Cool. Thank you. So what's new? First of all, what's new in the studio? It should be straight. But yeah, so I've made quite a bit of changes since we last. Cool. Boom. That's what it is. Appreciate you. All right. Cool. We should be good now. We should be good now. All right, so we're in here now. All good now. No, I get it. I get it. I appreciate it. I was monitoring off the wrong thing, so it was a YouTube problem. Cool. All right. So yeah, man. Now that y'all can hear me without it sounding like a million people talking at the same time. We have made quite a bit of updates in the studio. I actually ended up having to get rid of a lot of stuff. not because of financial reasons, but realistically, it was kind of like stuff that I had acquired over some time and really wasn't serving me. And, you know, I know I've made videos in the past about here's what you should do when you have gear, or like, you know, here's what you should not do with your gear. And, you know, I know I've been one of those guys that say, don't sell gear if you can. And yeah, I want to take some time also just to shout out Iceman and the Mad Scientist. What's going on with y'all? I'm acknowledging y'all. I see y'all. Appreciate y'all tapping in. But I know I've been one of those cats that will say, yeah, don't sell your gear, right? Now, I believe that everything comes with a caveat. Everything is with a caveat. So I think there are times when it is appropriate to sell gear. I would say try not to sell gear that you actively use, that you are getting value out of. Because if you have a piece of gear that you are actively getting value out of for some time, and then it just becomes old, that is not a good reason to sell it if it becomes old, because you may have just expended as much creative energy as you could get out of that device for that time. But that doesn't mean sell it. But there's times when you buy a piece of gear and you test it out, and from the onset, you don't get value out of it at all, right? There's times where you might get a piece of gear and it just doesn't work with like you creatively. It doesn't work with you in terms of your style, or you just don't like the workflow. There's times where you get a piece of gear and you know that kind of immediately, or after the first, you know, few weeks with it, you can kind of tell like this ain't really working for me, right? And I'm talking about after you've invested some actual energy into reading the manuals and going through different types of configurations and really trying to figure it out. I'm not talking about stuff where you just got it and you thought you were going to intuitively just get it and master it. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about stuff where you did your homework. Number one, you did all of the work necessary to understand the gear. You understood how to use it. You understood what you wanted to do with it. But then when you got it, it really didn't match with what you were doing in the end. And you kind of figured that out. In those cases, I would say sell the gear, because in that situation, the gear's not serving you. It's just you trying to force a piece of gear into your setup just for the sake of having that piece of gear. So that's a situation where I found myself over the past couple of years. I had acquired a few pieces of gear. Some of it was just I wanted to test it and get some knowledge around those pieces of gear. And after testing it and working with it for some time, I realized, yeah, it's not really connected with me. It's not the right piece of gear for me. And I sold it. Finally sold it. So the gear that I sold, number one, I got rid of my MPC 500. A lot of you guys didn't even know I had an MPC 500 because I never did any video content with the MPC 500. But the MPC 500 was one of those pieces that I wanted to get more knowledge on, because it was kind of like a gap in my MPC knowledge. I have pretty much used every MPC that's ever come out. I've owned quite a few of them as well, but the MPC 500 specifically was one that I didn't have a good reference point for. And a lot of you guys kind of come to my channel to find out about gear, especially like the MPC stuff. I think this channel has always been helpful in that regard of giving people pointers and tips on MPCs and drum machines in general. But the MPC 500, I would get questions about that particular device, and I always had just like a very high level understanding of it. Like, and I would always say, yeah, that one it's cool, but it doesn't seem like it's the real or the full MPC experience in the end. And I had my analysis from a distance. I could kind of like discern what it was and what it was lacking and why it wouldn't provide one with the full MPC experience. But I needed to get the knowledge to fully understand what that was, and so that I could talk about that particular piece of gear from an educated point of view. So I got it a couple years back actually, and I've been using it and playing around with it here and there, trying to find a flow with it and trying to find different areas I could use it. But the reality of it was that the MPC 500 never really meshed with me in the end. Everything that I thought was true about that piece of gear was true. I think number one for me, coming from being an MPC 2000 XL user first as my first MPC, the 500 never really did it for me. The 500 didn't have the MIDI setup that I'm used to. The 500 didn't provide me with the screen layout and just the quick ease of use that the MPCs normally have. The workflow was a little bit more menu heavy. I think sound-wise, it actually has an interesting sound. I won't say it's like a great sound. It's just an interesting sound. It definitely sounds different from the other MPCs, and it can sound in some use cases, it can sound a bit more punchy, depending on what you're going for. But I would say ultimately, the main value of the MPC 500 at that time that it came out was realistically its portability. I think in today's era of portable MPCs like the MPC Live, the use case for the MPC 500 is kind of diminished. I think the way that the 500 executes a portable form factors, it's just not as robust, and it's just not overall as great of an experience as you could get out of other portable devices. And you guys, those of you that have been on this channel or have watched this channel, you guys know I also use iPads and stuff. So for me, like the 500 by today's standards is a very, very limited device, and I don't see a good reason for me personally to have it. I think other people may find it to be a great creative challenge because of the way it works and because of the limitations. And I know some of you guys are chasing different types of devices to give you limitations to inspire you creatively. So I'm not going to take that away from you. I know that's a thing for people, and I think that is a valid thing. I have enough different gear to challenge me creatively. So that definitely was not something that I needed. Heck, YouTube challenges me creatively sometimes. I just had the audio doubling issue for the first couple minutes. I mean, there's plenty of things for me to explore as far as audio is concerned. And my point is that the 500 was not serving me in the end. And I got rid of that piece of gear. I don't regret it. I didn't have any plans of using it. I also had acquired I also have the MPC 1 now, which is in another room. It's kind of just a separate device for me right now that I can kind of go to and use for exploring other ideas and stuff. That piece of gear is not going anywhere. I like the MPC 1. I think it's a good piece of gear. I think it's a good MPC, and I think it's a great value. It's definitely a better value than a lot of the MPCs out there, in my opinion. So MPC 1, I got, and I'm quite happy with that. I've done a couple of videos on the MPC 1 already, so you guys have kind of got a chance to see me get down with the MPC-1. Greetings to everyone that's joining the stream. I'm glad y'all are joining it now and not 10 minutes ago when the stream was going crazy and I had echoing everywhere. But greetings, Rod Genna. I don't know exactly how I say that name. I hope I'm saying it right. Rod Genna or Roed Genna. But then, yeah, so that was one of the pieces that I got rid of. MPC 500. What else did I get rid of? A lot of you didn't know that I had also the Electron model samples. That was another piece of gear that I wanted to check out to just learn, because I haven't, I've never been really an Electron guy, and I wanted to check out Electron. And actually the first piece of Electron gear that I got was the model cycles, which I really like, and I still will use from time to time. Model cycles is a good piece, and I really enjoy what that brought to the table as far as new sound capabilities and workflow and whatnot, and actually used that along with some other things on one of the singles that I produced last year for artist Honey Blue. So I've been working with this artist Honey Blue from Carson, California, and yeah, the model cycles, I use that, like some of the primary synth sounds that are on her song Slide Out, which is available on streaming on YouTube. Check that out by Honey Blue. That's produced by me. I use the model cycles on that, and I've used it on quite a bit of other things, but that's just an example of one of the tracks I've used it on. So I got also the model samples. RTO, what's going on with you, bro? I see you in here. Thanks for joining. So yeah, I also got the model samples because I was thinking, well, I'm kind of digging the Electron workflow. Let me see what'll happen if I added more of a sample-based player into that workflow. So I thought I was gonna pair the model samples and the model cycles together, and I actually did a couple other things where I kind of configured it in some ways where it was also hooked up with the MPC 500. So I kind of had this little DAW-less type of setup for a while as I was working with it, trying to find out how I really wanted to use it. But in the end, I found myself not really vibing as much with the model samples. The main issue with the model samples for me was that it didn't sample directly. They had this transfer app that you could use to record into like your iPhone or an iOS device, and then you can transfer that from the app to the device, which was okay, but it wasn't really, I feel like for the price and for what it does, it kind of made it a bit more cumbersome and not as spontaneous in a way. And I definitely didn't want to have to use my phone. I don't like having to use my phone when I'm working on music. I find the phone to be a distraction. I do like the iPad because I don't have all the notifications and all the messages and calls and things like that popping up with my iPad, but with the phone specifically, I don't like using that as part of my music production workflow. So anything that forces me to use that as part of the workflow, I think is kind of it doesn't work in the end. So I ended up getting rid of the model samples. Didn't really vibe with me. I think the Electron workflow and the Electron sequencer especially is great. But that specific device, I think, realistically, if I wanted a sampler, I probably should have got a Digitact and not the model samples. But I think because I was so hyped about what I was accomplishing with the model the model sample or model cycle, sorry, they're confusing. the model cycles was very inspiring for me, so that's what made me think, yeah, I can pull that one in, but it's a totally different thing when you start bringing sampling into it. And I think for me, I like the immediacy of being able to record samples and getting things going and like having a good workflow that is inspiring. And it just wasn't doing those things for me in the end. So I got rid of the model samples. I also ended up getting rid of my Yamaha DTX controller / drum bank. I think some of you guys had seen me some videos, like maybe some producer functions. I think I probably did it on producer function 1 or 2 or something like that, where I was talking about like just exploring different input devices. And that was one of them. Realistically, if I'm being honest, I used it on maybe 1 or 2 tracks, but it never really found its way into my workflow in the end. But this is just part of me exploring, trying to find different vibes and different things I could use to get a different workflow and just get some different creative outcomes. But yeah, I had the Yamaha DTX controller, and it wasn't the right thing for me. So I ended up getting rid of that. So those are like some of the big things that I got rid of. One of the other things that I've added to my studio that you guys may or may not already notice is that I have a different desk set up now. I had went actually some years testing out like a different kind of setup. I had found like this thing at IKEA. You can see it in some of my older videos. It's kind of like this white. It's actually a baby changing table, if we're being honest. But it was an interesting thing because I was like, hey, this could be interesting, because I had a vision of how I wanted to work at that time. And I was definitely kind of leaning more towards these like dollish setups. And I wanted to have a little bit of a tabletop situation that also could store things. And it was cool at the time. It was definitely a departure from the desk that I had for many years, which I got from Guitar Center. I had one of the Studio RTA Guitar Center studio desk at that time for a long time, which served me well because it had, rack space, and, I could put my computer stuff in it. It had enough space for monitors and all the things that you would normally see in like a average home studio setup of, the modern era. So I used that for quite some time, but then when I switched to this IKEA desk setup, it was interesting. It had its pros and its cons. One of the things I did appreciate was being able to put my keyboard underneath the tabletop, because the way it's set up, it was a changing table. So I was able to like kind of slide my my MIDI controller directly under the changing surface, so to speak. So yeah, that was interesting. And I used that for a couple years, but I think I found myself being a little bit more frustrated over time, because it forced me to do a whole lot of other things to my setup, as far as like where the computer monitors go. And just realistically, I think I didn't end up sticking with this DAWless setup. Like I just explained to you some of the other DAWless gear that I had that I got rid of. I didn't end up staying in that mode. So I think over time, that desk lost its utility, and I needed something that was a little bit more traditional. So I ended up getting a AZ workstation desk. So my new desk here, it's a sit stand desk. It does have the keyboard tray. So Motif is right in here now, which I love, because essentially I could just really like look at the computer right here, work on my music, put input MIDI, from the keyboard here. It's a great desk. Like I said, it's a sit stand desk. So it has a few different levels that I can put it on. It's a great desk. I've enjoyed it, and I think it was the right move for me in the end. It definitely consolidated a lot of things in the studio, and yeah, I would say I know it. I know these desks that have come out in the past couple years that have a lot of this functionality tend to be expensive, and I would say, realistically, if you're debating about it on if you're one of those people that are debating about getting a new desk, I would recommend it. I would recommend it because it consolidates and organizes the studio in a way that could be way more conducive to a good workflow. And I think the utility of a desk in a home studio environment can't be understated. It is like the main hub of where you work in the end. And I think because of that, you should consider very wisely what type of desk you use as your main hub. And this one is a really good hub. Like I said, it's definitely not a cheap desk, but I think it's the right type of desk for me. It definitely consolidated so much and made it much more of a joy to be in the studio and work on music, because it's just everything is right in front of me, and it's just like everything's out of arm's reach. It's nothing feeling like it's out of the way or like too cumbersome for me to work on. So those are some of the big updates that I've made to my studio. I got a few other things that I'm still working on, but yeah, man, I just wanted to kind of like tap in with the folks. You know what I'm saying? I think people be curious about what's going on with my setup and where things are. So I wanted to share where I'm at with my studio, and also just provide some some recommendations and some also some insights around things that I've learned. I think that's part of the thing that I do here is just I like to share. Like if I try something, if it doesn't work for me, I like to be honest about it and say, no, that didn't work for me. If it does work for me, I'm most of these things I'm not getting commission for. If I am getting commission for something, I definitely will tell the channel like, hey, like if you click on this link, I get a part of it. But a lot of the times I'm not getting commission off of things I'm talking about on this channel because of the line of work that I do. So that kind of leads me to the next topic, which is just, and I won't go on to this too long, but for a lot of you guys that watch this channel, a lot of you guys know I'm actually an employee of Native Instruments, and I've been at Native Instruments. This will be my 14th year at Native Instruments. So I actually just celebrated my 14-year anniversary at Native Instruments. So a lot of you guys didn't know that. Some of you guys do. My current role at Native Instruments is Senior Product Manager for Machine Expansions and Play Series instruments. It's I just took this role in June, I think right before or right after the last the last stream. I took this role. So I've been doing that for the past few months now. The reality of it is this is kind of like a full circle moment for me, because I started off at Native Instruments in sound design. I was my first project at Native Instruments was George Duke's Soul Treasures. Actually, that was the first product that I worked on. I was the lead sound designer for Soul Treasures. So I worked with George Duke on that and did all the recording sessions, did a lot of the editing, a lot of the product design and whatnot. So that was my first major role in Native Instruments was sound design. But then I went on later to begin working on a new product line, and I created the concept for what is now known as the machine expansions line. So the machine expansion line, that was something that I wrote the original concept documents for, and kind of mapped out how it should work and how it should look. And um, I pretty much worked on the first 50 machine expansions over the over the first 6-7 years of my career at Native Instruments before moving on to a different role after that. But being back now on the machine expansion team, in not a sound design role, but as the product manager now, it's definitely, like I said, it's a full circle moment. But I think for me, it comes with a lot more maturity. It comes with a lot more, um, just a lot more maturity and experience. And I'm happy to be there and have an opportunity to start pushing some new ideas into that domain, because I left the machine team in 2017 to move over to the platform team, which was working on marketplace platforms like sounds.com, but they also were working on things like Metapop and a few other things that no longer are around today. So I'm definitely bringing a lot of the experiences that I had from the platform teams over to this new role as well, because it all was input, and it all informed me about, what's possible, and what's out there, and what we could do differently to better serve our audience in the end. And that's what I do as my day job. I'm not in here making beats 24/7. I think it's a good balance for me. I'm able to work on creative stuff on my off time, but during the daytime, and working long hours also to try to bring new creative products and use the creative experiences and just the ideas that I have from my own creative outlets, and I try to bring that into the workplace and hopefully materialize that into new opportunities to bring instruments and plugins and all sorts of things to you guys in the future. So I'm excited about that. And I wanted to share that because I think it's an important thing. And I think, as I was mentioning, I think I transitioned from talking about commission. I don't sell Native Instruments stuff on my site on ultrawest.com. I don't really promote Native Instrument stuff on my site or my channel. We do use it. I definitely use it on my production. I'm a real user of it. I don't just work there. I don't just work on the products. I'm a real user of the product, and I stand by the product, and I stand behind the product because it's definitely brought some value to me over the years. But I don't sell it, so I'm not here to recommend anyone get any Native Instruments products. I think you should always use what makes you the most comfortable or uncomfortable, depending on what you're going for. But I think ultimately you should use what's gonna bring you joy in the end and help you to realize your dream. So anyhow, I don't expect me to be talking too much about Native Instruments stuff on this channel, but I do need to inform you guys of that just in case stuff comes up and you want to talk about certain things, certain stuff I just can't talk about, some stuff I can talk about, and just out of respect for what I'm doing, I would say, if you have questions, be sensible about the questions. I can't tell you everything about what's going on, but if there are opportunities to tell you about, stuff that I think could be useful, I definitely will share that on this channel. So that's kind of the quick updates on my side. I want to acknowledge a couple more people in here. Yes, what's up, RTO? I think I acknowledged you already. CX, what's going on, my brother? Good to see you. BS Filter, what's going on with you? Yeah, man, I appreciate all y'all tapping in. You know, I know I don't do this very often, and there's a reason for that. I think for the most part, from what I've seen on YouTube, I think sometimes when you're too visible, people start to get tired of you, and it turns into a little bit of a hate fest for some people. I think one of the challenges with streaming is it's easy to put your foot in your mouth when you're doing live streaming. I think that just comes with the territory. It's easy to say something that's not very well thought out, or not articulated well in the end. And I think that's always going to be a challenge when people are streaming. Streaming is live. It's on the spot. It's spontaneous, and there's a lot of input coming at you. Like, you know, there's the live chat, and there's everything going on at once. And I think people are trying their best to try to engage with everybody, and also protect the image of their channel. So I respect those that can get on and stream weekly and really bring some value. That's something that I would like to do more. And I have the setup, even though like I'm always changing my setup, and you know, it's not always perfect. Sometimes it's laggy. Sometimes the audio is doubling. Sometimes it's this, that, or whatever. It's because I don't stream often. So it's always like reconfiguring the setup every time. So, you know, starting from scratch again, there's bound to be an issue. I think if I did it every week, it'd probably be a lot smoother. But in any event, I do want, like I said, I do want to stream more. I don't know if I can do the weekly thing, and I don't know that there's so much to talk about each week. And I think there's so many people doing streams in this era. It can become a bit of a distraction in a way. I think that we all kind of want to just connect, and I think it's a good way for us to connect as a community. But I also try to balance it with just not being a distraction, because I think at the end of the day, all of us here are interested in music production. A lot of us here love music production. It's kind of the thing that really motivates and drives us. And because of that, I think a lot of us also work day jobs. I feel like a lot of my audience are adults with jobs that have careers and families and limited time, and everybody don't have time to be sitting up watching every stream that's going on, especially and you definitely shouldn't feel like you have to watch every stream to be caught up with what's going on in the music production world. I think there's better ways for us to do that. Sometimes these videos can be a little bit more serving the creator of the channel more than serving the community in the end. So I'm trying to balance that, but I do want to connect with the community more, because I believe that this community is special. And I just, I do really appreciate the camaraderie that I find from the community when people are genuinely about the craft and really are about like pushing things forward as far as music and sound is concerned. So, I do expect to do a bit more of these. I don't know how many I can do by the end of this year, but this won't be the last one this year. This is kind of like me ramping up for next year. I do plan on doing a bit more of this, and I think now that I have kind of done a few things to my setup to like really make it conducive for me to get in here and feel comfortable, it's a bit better of a situation altogether. Iceman, to be honest, I was kind of surprised that the new NI keyboards didn't come as standalone devices. That would have made so much sense. All right, so y'all want my opinion on the keyboards? Like I said, I don't sell Native Instruments products here. I work for Native Instruments, and I always talk about stuff that I find useful, that I find to be of a value, and that's the stuff that I put in my studio. I'm not cheap about my gear. I like to have the right gear. I like to have things that make sense, and I like to have things that I feel like will either consolidate or expand depending on what I'm looking to do. So I can give you a little bit of my thoughts about the last couple of like major hardware from Native Instruments, because I actually just got like before I get to the keyboard, I actually just recently got one of the other major Native Instruments products, and I'll show it to you real quick. I haven't done a lot of music on it yet because it's just kind of like I just got it, but I'll show it to you. So yeah, I just got this piece. It's the Machine Studio or Machine Plus, Machine Plus. I got this maybe a couple weeks back and been kind of really testing it out. But I never intended to like own this piece really in the end. I when it came out, I had my issues with it. And I think with the Machine Studio or with the Machine Plus, why do I keep saying Machine Plus? That's how new it is for me. Like I've been a Machine Studio user for a long time. But this Machine Plus, when it came out, I think that's why I keep saying Machine Studio, because realistically, I think many of us would have expected that the Machine Plus would have been a successor to the Machine Studio. But the problem is the Machine Plus realistically is a successor to the MK3. Now, there's nothing wrong with the MK3. I'm a big fan of the MK3. I think the MK3 was a great version of Machine, and it added a lot of functionality and consolidated a lot of the great things that were happening in the Machine Studio and also the Machine MK2. So when MK3 came out, I was like, this is good. This is a good system, and I liked it. I liked the color screens. I liked the form factor. It was, had a small footprint. What I did miss about the Studio, though, was that the Studio had a great MIDI interface. It had 1 in, 3 out, which was a great thing, because if your audio interface doesn't have built-in MIDI interface, and in a situation like I have where I have a lot of MIDI gear, you need those MIDI outs to be able to talk to all the other stuff. Like I have my SE1 down here and my XV5050 and I got an ATC1 and a Kaias 3000 behind me, and I got some keyboards over here. So, there's a lot of MIDI gear in here, and I need the MIDI outputs. So when we went back to the MK3 and it didn't have all the MIDI out that I was used to, that was a downgrade for me in a sense. And it definitely caused me to rework the way I was using the Machine, because I had a specific workflow that I had found with the Studio that was working for me. So MK3 comes, and then the talk starts about the Plus. And there was like I think my perspective was, if you're going to do a standalone hardware, it should focus on standalone workflows. And I think standalone workflow can mean a lot of different things for different people depending on who you're talking to. I think for some people, standalone means that it is a portable device that you can take to the beach, right? It's standalone in the sense that it has no cables hooked up to it, and you can just work on music in standalone without any wires. That's what standalone means for some people. I'm of the era of standalone just meaning that it doesn't require a DAW or a computer for it to run. Standalone for me does not mean that I'm taking it outside of the studio. Standalone for me means that it stands alone. It can boot up by itself. It has its own operating system. I can connect it to other MIDI gear and get things going in my studio without using my DAW. So in that sense, that's what my expectation of standalone is. When the Machine Plus was being talked about, though, we started to kind of disagree a bit about what it should be in the end. And I think where that team landed, because I wasn't on that team at that time, I was on the platform team working on the web stuff. So, I was kind of like loosely involved, but not really involved with that product in the end. But when they started to say, well, we're going to push it more towards the MK3 form factor and kind of make it like a standalone version of the MK3, then I was like, cool. Well, at least can you make sure it has a battery and maybe a touchscreen? These things didn't get added to this at all. They weren't possible at that time for a number of reasons, but I think it was mainly about price point and reliability at that time, this is 2016-17. I felt like the Machine Plus needed to at least have a battery. It needed to, like, at least, especially for the size and the footprint that it has. I think many people expected it to have a battery and also touchscreen. Like, the screens kind of allude to it being somewhat of a touchscreen interface. And I think because the screens are not touchscreen, it kind of puts it in a more of a dated state to me. It doesn't feel like it's aligned with the modern era of standalone hardware. So Machine Plus came out, and also the MIDI implementation. I felt like, okay, so if it's gonna be standalone, it should at least have like some sort of, it should have something that's going to help me in a MIDI environment, because a lot of, especially 2017, that's when you started to see a lot of DAW-less channels, and a lot of people were like going DAW-less or whatever. Like, it should have had that already. So we started talking about that. We started talking about Machine Plus pretty early. It wasn't until 2020 that it actually came out, but it actually could have come out earlier, but I think we just made a decision that it wasn't the right time. That being said, I am still not 100% happy with where the Machine Plus is. I actually think it's a good system as a drum machine. But I think because of what it is and what people expect, I think the expectation is very high, and it doesn't deliver if you have very high expectations for it, especially at the price point. I do feel like for most of us will probably pick the MPC line over this, just because of all of the features, the workflow, our comfort with MPCs and all that stuff. A lot of us that are especially MPC based producers will probably say that the MPC line is better, because I even feel like for the value, the MPC one tends to beat the Machine Plus in terms of overall value. If we're talking about standalone hardware that has to plug up to a wall, that has MIDI out, audio out, built-in instruments, effects, and all that stuff. Like, what they've done at Akai is amazing at this point, as far as like the overall system, and the value of that system is very high, and the price is pretty amazing, because I was one of those guys that had the MPC 1000, and I remember how much of a big boost that was in terms of what it was able to do and with that form factor. So the MPC 1 to me is kind of in the same lineage of the MPC 1000, but just what the MPC 1 brings to the table in terms of instruments and effects, and just overall like workflow and capabilities, it's just it's another level. And I think the plus is, for me, because it does not have a battery, I don't see a lot of benefit for me in terms of how I use the machine, because I'm definitely a machine user. I tend to use the MK3. So I have the MK3 right here. I tend to use that more because it just makes a lot of sense. I like using the machine connected to the computer because I can use my Apollo as the interface. I can use all the inputs and all the audio that's coming in from my keyboards and stuff. I can route directly to the MK3 on the software. I can use any of the plugins that I have on my computer. It's an integrated system. It's an integrated solution for me. So for me, the MK3 still makes more sense as far as workflow is concerned than the Machine Plus, and I don't see a good reason for me to spend $1,400 to buy something that still requires power that I have to use in a traditional sense, and then and if I use it in a standalone, I can't use all my plugins, and it doesn't have the robust audio input and output. So it misses a lot for me. And I would hope that in the future we develop a standalone that is a bit more robust and considers all the world of modern electronic music equipment that people will probably want to use with this, and figure out some different ways to create some workflows that are a bit more modern and a bit more inspiring. That leads me to the new keyboard. I don't have the new keyboard. I don't necessarily. I probably will get to use one in the coming months or so, but I don't have one right now. Um, I didn't. The keyboard was one of those things where I didn't see if you already had the MK2, I didn't see it as a huge update. I think for some people, like if you're on the market for a keyboard right now, it probably is one of the better more higher end keyboard options that you can get. So I think if you need a new MIDI controller, probably it should be considered. But I think if you already have a solid MIDI controller, I don't see a good reason to run out and get that. It's a pretty expensive MIDI controller, especially if you need a 61 key. And I prefer 61 keys in this studio. I'm not a pro keyboard player, but I'm decent enough on the keyboard where I find 61 keys to be a bit more comfortable ultimately. So for that price point, you're talking about what are you in the $800 range for a MIDI controller? No sounds, limited IO. It's very expensive, and I don't and it doesn't have all the other modern things that I would expect from a keyboard like that right now. I think the biggest thing that keyboard has going for it is the NKS 2.0, which really does bring a lot more life to the instruments that support NKS 2, because just the way it looks visually on the keyboard and the way it's laid out across the macro controls and the controller pages, that's actually a step up, especially if you consider how generic keyboard controllers used to be historically. And I was definitely one of those nerds that bought some of the older things like the auto remotes, and even before that I had a lot of other keyboards that you had to configure manually. So to see where we are now in terms of the tech and how it integrates with the virtual instruments, and just the layout and the way it's already automatically configured for you, I think that is something special if you are a heavy virtual instrument user. Now, I'm not a heavy virtual instrument user. I do use virtual instruments. Don't get me wrong. I definitely use virtual instruments plenty. I use a lot of the built-in Logic instruments, first of all, because I'm a Logic user. So I use a lot of that. I also use the Korg suite, like the Korg gadget stuff. I use that. Those are some of the main things that I use. I do use Contact and all that kind of stuff too. I mean, obviously, working at Native Instruments and being on that team, I'm bound to mess with Contact. But even in my own production, I do use Contact for very specific instruments. I don't use Contact for everything. I use Contact when I need it. I think NKS works best with Contact, because obviously it's native instruments, but then it also works great with NKS2 compatible software. So like the Korg stuff works fine, and there's plenty other things that work well with NKS. But I'm also a very big hardware user. Um, Still, like like I said, I still use my SE1. I still use my Mofo X4. I still use my Novation Summit. I still use my my Blowfield. I'll use the S3000 sometimes. Like I use MIDI keyboards too, and I don't think that the NKS thing really translates to hardware at all. So it's kind of irrelevant for the hardware standalone use case. And to many degrees, it doesn't really bring as much value if that's where you live. And I kind of live in between those worlds. So ultimately, I just use I still use my motif. That's what you saw. Like when I pulled out when I pulled out that tray, that keyboard is the Motif ES, the one that I had forever, right? And it still works. I mean, amazingly enough, when I boot that Motif ES keyboard up, it says copyright 2003. So this is a 20-year-old keyboard, but it still works just fine for what I'm doing. I don't have any problems with it, and I think if I reach a place where the motif no longer serves me on the MIDI controller side, of course, I'll use a different MIDI controller. I'll get something else. But realistically, it's working just fine. So I don't have a strong reason to upgrade to the to that keyboard. Plus, the reality is, I think the other big benefit of the NKS setup is like if you have a setup where your keyboard is not right in front of the computer screen. If you're like it used to be that my keyboard was kind of like perpendicular to my screen. So like the direction I'm facing right now, this is where my keyboard would traditionally be. And then my computer is, on the side where you see me. But because I got this new desk and it's all kind of consolidated, the keyboard is right there. So the screen and the keyboard are on the same plane. And it just, I can look at everything and kind of do what I need to do. And also, Maschine does all that NKS control stuff as well. So, I had a Maschine MK3 on the desk. I can do all that same stuff. So that being said, I didn't get a lot of value out of it. So for me, the latest version, the MK3, didn't come across as a must-have for me. Like I said, I think if you're in the market for a MIDI controller, something to consider for sure. But if you're not in the market, it's not something that's going to like change your life today. And that's why I say, like I said, I don't sell Native Instruments products on this channel, but that's just my perspective. That's where I'm at with it. It didn't come across as something that I must have. And, I think that if you're in the market, definitely check it out. Otherwise, don't worry about it because it's just a MIDI controller at the end of the day. And I think MIDI controllers tend to be very overrated to a degree. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm gonna take some time to respond to a couple questions in here and say what's up to folks. Mixed Work Recordings, what's going on with you? Thanks for dropping by. AMXUM said, which Maschine iteration has the best user interface in your opinion? It's the Studio for me. I would say Studio overall, just because like everything I talked about is the combination of the I/O, the physical I/O, the screens, the layout of the hardware. One of the other things that have bothered me about later versions of the Maschine is that they've reduced the transport section. And for me, for the hardware experience, transport is a main part of why I would want to use a hardware sequencer or drum machine. If I cannot navigate the transport in a way that feels a bit more intuitive and also just really straightforward, I might as well just use use Logic then, because I have so many controls, like commands and things that help me to navigate the transport. That's one of the main things I liked about the MPC is the transport section. I think that I'm not like a heavy sample guy, but the MPC sequencer is king for me on the hardware side, but it's king because of the transport section. Transport section is really what separates it in the end. Because if you look at the MPC transport section, it just has the right layout. It has it's not just record, stop, and play, but it's record, overwrite, record, overdub, and then you got play, start, and then you got the whole locate section where you can, quickly jump to different bars and things. All of that stuff makes a big difference when we're talking about standalone sequencing, hardware standalone sequencing. So the later machines started to slim down on the transport section and took away the things like the forward and reverse and all that stuff. And as that started to like move out, it made it a little bit more difficult to use on just the hardware. So the studio still had like the full transport, which was great. And it also had the jog wheel that you can use to navigate the sequences. So these are all things that I know that, are value for me. But I think, because I don't work on that side, like I hadn't had a lot of input on that. I'm back closer to that side now. So a lot of this stuff I am having discussions with. I can't say that any of it is going to be done in the end, but I think because I'm part of that conversation again, we have to address it now. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, that's my take on like the best interface on the machine side. CC Funk, I see you. What's going on with you? Masada, what's going on with you? Much respect, bro. I hope all is well with you as well, man. Bobby, yeah, we talked about that earlier. But just in case you missed it, I'm senior product manager for the expansions and play series products at Native Instruments. So this is year 14 for me at Native Instruments. But yeah, I'm product manager for expansions and play series. So all the play series instruments you see and all the expansion products, yeah, those are under my guidance. CC Funk says, I sure do like the new Yamaha Montage M6X, but not at 3400. Yeah. I think the Yamaha wants a pretty penny for what they do. I think they've kind of shifted gears to being more music director focused. So they're not much of a studio company anymore, which is kind of unfortunate because I loved when they were in like the studio mindset. But now that they're kind of like much more, MD, church band leader oriented, it definitely took away a lot of the features that I thought that they could have grown and made into like a amazing studio device in the end. Like the sampling, for example, they're not really doing the sampling anymore. The sequencing, they're not doing that anymore. Yeah, it's just a different mindset, and I don't see myself buying the latest or the new stuff from Yamaha. That's coming from a long time Yamaha user, but also, Yamaha was the first place that I got sound design experience, and I did sound content for them back in the day, and that was, so I'm part of, I'm an alumnus of Yamaha as well, but yeah, the new stuff, I don't know. Like it's not for me. Like I'm not saying it won't work for you, but definitely it's not for me. And I couldn't see myself spending $3,400 on that. There's a lot of other things that I could see that would add value to my setup. And the montage is not necessarily one of them, especially sound wise at this point. So yeah. G Ball, what's going on with you? Appreciate you kicking it. Glad you're enjoying the chat as well. Um, but yeah, man. I don't know. Do y'all had any other questions or anything? What's going on with y'all? Any other new gear y'all looking at? Any other exciting things on the music production horizon? I know ain't nothing exciting happening with the way musicians are getting paid these days. That's not exciting. Looking at some of the moves that Spotify is doing, and I still don't know why people continue to get their music on Spotify, especially like independent people, and putting a full album on Spotify. I think is doesn't feel like it's the right move anymore. I think we're gonna have to focus on peer to peer and direct to consumer. I don't think that streaming is the right thing for an entire project. I think it's probably fine for um, single promotion still. Like if you just want to get a single out there and let people hear it, it makes sense. But I think putting your whole project there and like making it like exclusively on streaming, I think that's a bad look because the reality is if you don't control the price of your art, then you're not in control in the end. You don't own the product and you're letting somebody else control your destiny. So I think that realistically, a lot of us should recalibrate and rethink our strategy with our music in terms of like the commerce part of it, because there's no commerce for us happening on Spotify. We are just basically allowing a platform to leverage our music as part of their commerce strategy and advertising strategy, but we shouldn't do that in the end. I think we're giving them too much power, and I don't think it's a worthy fight for us to fight for them, because at the end of the day, you can't make $1 out of 15 cents. And that's what they're doing at Spotify, is trying to make $1. I think that's what we're doing at Spotify. Spotify is getting their money. We're trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. You know, you can't expect that if a company says we're gonna make every song that exists in the world that we have access to available for $10, you can't expect them to pay you like a big share of that money. Like you at this point, it's just kind of like it doesn't make sense, and you should not focus on only engaging with your audience on Spotify. Um, let me see here. I'm gonna get. I see your question, G Ball. Let me get through this list real quick. I'm gonna get to that too. Um, now let me get to this first because realistically, that I'll get back to you, William Oates. How about that? I think realistically, we need to focus on engaging with a core audience and focusing on adding value to that core audience and also sharing things in exclusive ways with that core audience. And yes, a consumer will support things outside of streaming. Streaming is a convenience, and I think you don't want to take away certain conveniences. But if we understand that, like, your casual consumer is just single oriented, they want quick access to the latest songs that come out. Okay, cool. Give them that. Give them access to your latest song that has come out. But I think if you're going to create an experience for an audience that is not casual with you, you should look at ways to bring them a more exclusive experience with music. And there's a lot of ways you can think of that. I think hard physical copies could be one thing if you know that your audience has what's necessary to use or to listen to your music on a physical format. Everybody don't have a CD player in a setup. You know what I'm saying? I do. I got a CD player right here, right? I love CDs. I got books and a shelf full of CDs, and I use CDs. Like CDs are a part of like how I get down. But everybody ain't like that, right? Everybody ain't listening to music on CDs still. So you can't force an audience that is not into listening to music that way to listen to music from that mode or that media format. So you kind of have to look strategically at how can you provide a consumer with access to your music in a way that still allows them to listen to it in a convenient way, but also realize that the only people that are looking to buy music today are those that are hyper engaged. So they're engaged beyond just the single. Those that just care about the single, yeah, just send them to Spotify and only put the single there. Don't put the whole album there. Put the single there so that casual consumer can get what they're looking for. But your hyper engaged are looking for deeper connections with the music. So number one, yes, you could give them a special form of the full album and have them go to your website. And I think those that are hyper engaged will do that because they want the exclusive. They want the special experience. So you can send them to the website and make sure that when you send them to the website, it's not just here's your zip file, but maybe give them something else that is like a little bit more exclusive. Like there's so many platforms now that enable us to share intimate, exclusive, behind the scenes, or extra content, things that allow us to just expand the experience beyond just here's the music. Like you can give them a download of the music for sure. Like, hey, here's an exclusive download of the music, but you also might want to consider giving people access to alternates, for example. Alternates is an opportunity as well, because I think alternates provide the listener with a few different takes of the same song. Like here's a few different ideas that I had on this same song, and usually I would just put the single out. The single was like the final vision that we had, and that's the final version of the song. But for your like exclusive, the ones that are hyper engaged, alternates could be a way that you engage with them. Like, hey, when you go to my site, you're not just gonna get just the final version that's on streaming, but you're also gonna get some alternates that have some different things on it. It's not like you're not giving them crap. You're not giving them stuff that is like trash. You're giving them just different ideas or different versions. Like, hey, we had a version that had this and that on it. We ended up taking that off in the end, or there was a different take of it, and we kind of did it this way on this version. You can do that kind of stuff for sure. I have jazz albums that provide a whole bunch of alternates and stuff, and it's always fun to listen to kind of like the different the alternate versions of songs and be like, oh, okay, that was cool too. Remixes and things could be interesting too, things that you just wouldn't be able to release on streaming. Like maybe you had a remix that had a different a kind of a different thing going on to it, like, but you didn't release it as the final version. It could be an alternate for an exclusive version that you put on your website. But there's also like the video content, and there's also like behind the scenes footage and interviews and other things you can do that can provide a lot of value to your consumer that you can sell directly to them. And that's only for the hyper engaged. And realize that we got to realize that most music listeners today are not hyper engaged, because no one's hyper engaged in anything. Everybody's kind of like scrolling. Everybody's just like quick, like casually like consuming things and not really like actively looking, because when you have something like streaming, it doesn't promote active searching. It promotes casual listening, and it's like very passive because you have playlists and they're just giving you stuff to listen to, and it's recommendation engines, and it's a totally different thing than when we used to have to go look for an album or go search for the new record and all that kind of stuff. So we can't consider that we can't look at most of the audience as being an actively engaged music listener. Most of the music listeners today are passively engaged. So because of that, find the ones that are actively engaged and sell to them. That's the ones you should sell to. But to not sell to anyone is crazy, because there are people that are engaged. There are people that care about music more than just a playlist. Find those people and nurture them. And I think that's the important part. Is like you nurture the audience that actually cares about music. Don't worry about the people that are passively not invested beyond a $12 subscription on Spotify or whatever the price is. I don't have Spotify, so I don't know. But don't worry about those people. You can't sell to someone that's not looking to buy music in the end. Right. So that's the number one thing. If you got an audience that you know is not looking to buy music because it's more convenient for them to just stream it, and they don't care about like all the deeper experiences or the deep experiences that they want to have. Maybe I want to go to the concert and I want to do all this other stuff. Like that might be where you have to capture them. But I'm talking about for those that really care about the music, and there are people out there that exist that care about the music. You just need to find them and you need to communicate with them. You need to develop a communication strategy that works for them, and then focus on nurturing that audience. So that's my take on it. But I don't think we should continue to try to push on Spotify to make a change on their business model and how they pay us, because that's a cloud library concept. It is a certain type of business model. It is a dated model, in my opinion, because it doesn't realize the abilities of Web3. It doesn't really interact or engage with Web 3.0. It definitely doesn't acknowledge peer-to-peer transactions. It's just a way for a tech company to make music listening convenient by changing the way that music is accessed. So it's an access model, but it doesn't benefit us as musicians that want to make a living or even just make income off of our products in the end. And I think we should have a way to make money off of our product, and we should continue to be able to monetize that. And the way we have to monetize it will come from us nurturing an audience that actually cares about the music. So yeah, we had platforms like Bandcamp. Bandcamp got sold, but I don't think that is the only way to engage or get a different price point for your music. There's Bandcamp as a platform, but I think websites in general have not died. I think you just need to figure out what audience actually cares enough to go to a website and focus on them. Don't focus on everybody, because things have changed. Media has changed. The way that people consume media has changed. So a lot of people want to just get things in quick bites, and a lot of people aren't listening to music deeply and like sitting and just listening to music like we used to, because that used to be a thing. A lot of us don't do that anymore. Like just focus on just music and listen to it. But find the ones that do, and then I think that's where you can find some gains there. All right, I'm gonna get back to the questions here. William Oates was saying, me too, the RS7000, the SU700, and the motif were it for me at Yamaha. Yes, yeah. They should have continued on that path as well, but I understand they made so much money off their keyboards, it was hard for them to kind of focus on drum machines and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. BS Filter said he's looking at the Gaia 2. I haven't really checked that out much. I remember the original one from Roland seemed like kind of like a general subtractive synthesizer. Seemed kind of interesting, but not, I don't know. It wasn't really like on my radar, I'll say that. Kinley said, did I ever try the S2400? No, I didn't end up trying that at all. On that topic, I've always kind of been interested in the SB 1200 as part of just the historical context of sampling and especially hip hop music and whatnot. And the S 2400 definitely was an interesting take on that style of workflow. And it was something that, for the price point, it seemed like it was a interesting way to mess with a SP 1200 style product. Um, I didn't end up getting it or like messing with it. It seemed interesting, but I had some buddies that had it and they had, some had good reviews, some of them had mixed reviews for it. Um, that being said, it didn't seem like something that I needed to have. But I'm still very interested in the SB 1200 because, like I said, it has a special place in the history of sampling, and it is definitely a product that I would want to have because I want to fill in that gap of my knowledge of samplers and especially 12-bit samplers. And I do have a 12-bit sampler. I have the Roland W30, which Eric Sermon was kind of like the one of the main hip hop guys that worked on that one. So I did get some experience with 12-bit, but still like SP 1200 seems like one where it feels like it's something that I should know about. It should be something that I learn and understand and kind of figure out what it means sonically in the end. Because I've always been like I started at 16-bit in my music production. I never had 12-bit anything until like the W30. But SP 1200 seems like it's definitely something that I should know. And that being said, I did. So my boy EA Ski just released the Rawsome 1200, the Rawsome SB 1200 special edition, the EA Ski version of it. So he did like a special edition with 50 units, and yeah, he told me about it, and I debated. I was like, man, this is actually a good look, and my boy's doing it. Like, you know, I decided to go ahead and get one of those. So, because my boy was doing it, I wanted to support number one. Number two, I didn't see myself buying a old vintage one for the price point. The price point of the vintage ones are astronomical at this point, and I think old machines just come with a lot of maintenance that you have to be ready to support the machine with in order to keep it in working order. And it's no way I was going to spend the price point for an original one. And when Ski came out with his, I was like, well, this the time. This the time to get it. So yeah, went ahead and got that. So I ordered it and I'm waiting for it now. And I'll definitely post more about that once it comes. But I'm excited about it because like me and him have talked about the SP 1200 for a long time. One of my other guys, Jared Jackson, DJ producer, he's actually been the main one that really has told me the ins and outs of the SP 1200, and it's definitely something that's exciting for me. So I will be posting more about that once I do get it. So like I said, we'll do another stream once I do get that, and we'll talk about it. So yeah, that should answer that. Um, Yeah, CC Funk said I still listen on CD, but many don't. Yeah, same. I mean, I still listen on CDs. I listen on everything. I don't just listen on CD. I have my CDs that I listen to, but I definitely listen to streaming. My streaming platform actually is YouTube. I have the YouTube Premium, and I listen to music on that when when I need to listen to some new music or something that's not on CD. But I don't. I don't limit myself, but I do know that everybody's not going to be a CD person, and I don't think we should force everybody to try to buy CDs from us. I think there's other ways to provide value to a consumer and like give them access to something that's special without forcing them to be on a CD. William O said he was looking at the W30 today. That's dope. Yep. G-Ball said, I wonder if the limited profit potential of streaming model has had a negative impact on the quality of music. Of course it has. Of course it has. People, it's content now, so people are not really spending the time that they would because I mean, a lot of people, a lot of the hustlers in rap of like the previous era, they saw the come up. They saw like, oh, I could go get in the studio and make money, but I could put some music down, and then I could go out and sell the CDs for $20 a pop, and you know the margin was good. Like people that are hustlers look at the margins and figure out like what the margin is and how much money they can make off of their investment. And when you take that away, it definitely takes away the folks that are hustle minded. It takes them out of the equation because they're looking at it like that's all money in and no money out. You know what I'm saying? That's no money out of it, right? So it's just like, well, I got to be able to get something out of it. And you see a lot of the people of previous eras that were hustle minded, they're in other businesses now. You know, these people got dispensaries and wineries and smoothie shops and all kind of stuff that like probably has a much better profit margin in the end than music has. And they don't want to deal with the low profit margins of music. And they also don't want to deal with touring and all the stuff that comes with being musicians now. So I think a lot of people have moved on. And then those that are still there kind of have looked at it in terms of the hustle of content. So that they figured out ways to come out with the music quicker, which means that they're not going to spend the same amount of money to produce the product in the end because it's not worth it for them to do so. So it's definitely going to reduce the quality of the music because if you need to be able to produce a lot of music over the year, you're not going to get the same type of budget and the same type of production that you would have gotten during the 90s and 80s and whatnot when the music business was thriving and they were selling CDs and tapes and all that stuff. You're not going to get those big budget albums anymore. You're going to get very affordably digitally done albums in the end. So yeah, it's going to bring down the quality of music. It definitely has an impact. Hey, D-Nell, what's going on with you, bro? Thanks for tapping in with me. I appreciate you. Let's see here. Tracks all day. Yes, sir. Masada, he said, I'm excited about Ski's SB1200 as well. Congrats on the purchase. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm excited for him, man. I had to support my bro. You know, he's definitely held me down on a lot of areas over the years. So, you know, once he really got things going with the SP1200, I was like, yeah, let me support him on that. And I think it makes a statement for everybody involved with this. I think in the end, it's an important step for music producers to have this type of community where we can support ideas and projects that come out from within. Because I think when I think about the beat thing topic, I know the beat thing has like a bad reputation because of like certain videos that came out and whatnot. And, you know, I think they didn't have a good marketing rollout in the end for Beat Thing. But I also know that if Beat Thing would have had more support and would have been successful, the landscape would be completely different for these hardware instruments because we would have enabled another player that is actually of our community to be a part of the MI, the music tech space, and it would put a lot of pressure on companies like Akai, Native Instruments, and whoever else is playing in that field. It would have created a dynamic where you now have to compete with a team of people that are tapped in with the community, tapped in with what is real and what's important to us. And I think that makes a statement when you have a group of people that are developing the product from a perspective of being real producers and not just a tech company that doesn't really care about the community, when it just sees the community as something they can profit off of, man. So I think that's an important thing, and I think B Thing could have been the first step towards us having a bit more of a voice overall on what happens in this. But like I said, that didn't happen that way. But with my boy EA Ski coming out with this 1200, I think that this is another opportunity for us to get behind someone that understands what we're doing and understands what music and sound should be, and what especially what hip hop production is about, but production in general. And I think that if we rally behind this, it will pay dividends for us all in the end, because it creates more pressure for the music tech space, and it shows that we are in control of our own destiny, because we understand who has our best interest in mind, and we will use our money to support those that have our best interest in mind. EA, what's going on? I see you, bro. I love you too, bro, man. I really appreciate you, man. I appreciate what you're doing, man. Really appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for jumping in the stream, my bro. But yeah, that's I think that's an important thing for us. G-Ball said Prince's smoothies didn't sell well. Yeah, I mean, everybody ain't gonna have a successful brick and mortar business. I think when I was talking about smoothies, I think I was referring to, I think Jadakiss has a smoothie spot, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, anyhow, everybody ain't gonna have a successful wing stop or whatever the hustle is that folks got now. Like, it's a lot of different business ventures that people that were rap adjacent are getting into to monetize things outside of music, because they're, especially if you're on a major record label, you ain't getting no money off of the streaming, really. So whatever money they're getting and putting into other things that are more profitable. And I definitely see that they don't believe that going direct to consumer is profitable. And I think those that are signed to major labels can't go into direct consumer modalities. So they can't really go into a situation where I'm going to record my album and then I'm going to go and send everybody to my website. They can't do it. So that's why they have brick and mortars. That's why they have dispensaries. That's why they have wing stops and all these other things that are, better businesses in the end, that don't conflict with their contract with the record label. So yeah. Yeah, man. That's I don't want to stay on too long. I think I've been on for about 90 minutes now, man. Like I said, I will do more of these. The setup is good now. We went over earlier in my stream. We just talked about additions that I made to my studio and changes that I made to the studio. So I talked about gear that I got rid of. I got rid of the MPC 500, the Electron model samples. I had a Yamaha DTX controller I got rid of. I got rid of the weird IKEA desk that I had and got a desk that I like a lot better, sit stand desk. So I'm gonna flex my sit stand desk real quick on y'all. Yeah, but yeah, yeah. I love my new desk. My new desk is definitely doing it for me. But yeah, man, I'm excited about this SP1200 coming too. So we'll definitely talk about that. We'll definitely talk about that when it arrives. I think the Machine MK4. We talked about the Machine. I think we talked about what was happening with the Machine and my take on it. It's not really. I don't think it's really serving the purpose that people want in today's era of standalone. So the Machine Plus definitely not. Maybe a later version of Machine will, but yeah, this one no. This one I think the MK3 still is the king for me at least. Yeah, but yeah, man, we're gonna do this more often. Like I said, especially when I get this SP1200, I'm definitely gonna do a stream on that as well. I'm not doing an unboxing, y'all. So don't expect me to do that. I might post on social about that. Like I'm not doing the unboxing thing. I think I'll leave the unboxing for other people. I want to spend some time actually working with it, and then like we're gonna talk about it for real, and we're gonna hook it up and like make some music with it. The unboxing thing. I might just post a picture on YouTube or something. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not really a unboxing video guy. I think there's I guess there will be 49 other guys that will be able to do an unboxing video of it. But I definitely will talk about it once I get it. So I'm excited to share that with you guys as well. But if there's anything else that you guys are interested in, leave a comment on the on this video. Let me know. Like, hey man, like we miss you. We've been waiting for you to talk about this or that. Leave it in the comment. Let me know. But we'll do this again. Probably. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not gonna put a date on it. Yeah, man. I mean, I think we gotta. I'm gonna talk to Ski and see, figure out how we gonna collab on the video content stuff as well, man. I'll talk to him about that. We definitely should do that though. I think that would be good for everybody. I know he's doing a lot of great work with his videos, video interviews and stuff. He's done a lot of cool interviews with some very legendary producers. But I think in the sense there's still something to be had about us potentially doing a stream or a conversation, because I think we get into a few other areas of conversation that maybe other folks don't get into. So that being said, y'all, I'm going to call it for the night. Just want to tell y'all thanks again for checking out the stream. Also, y'all make sure, I know we just talked about streaming and stuff, but I think y'all check out my girl Honey Blue. She is dropping her next single on she will drop it on her website, and she will also be dropping it on streaming. Let me get the website for y'all, because I want y'all to support the artist that I'm working with for sure. And Honey Blue is an artist that I'm working with, and she's a talented artist, and I think it's important for me to continue to support artists like this that are serious about what they're doing and really care about what they're doing, and has a message. I'm gonna drop the link here. She will be dropping the next single called Be Real on her website. She will also have it on streaming. It's a single, so she's gonna have the entire she's gonna have a little bit more than just the single on her website. But then here's her website, but also y'all can pre-save it. If you're a Spotify user, you can pre-save it on Spotify. The information is on her website, and you can also get the album that we did last year, or the EP we did last year, called Master of the Ceremony. I produced 3 songs on that. So definitely support that if you're interested in some of the music that I'm working on. But yeah, we'll get it in. Until next time, I want to tell y'all peace and God bless. Yes, G-Ball, I produced 3 songs on this project, and the next single that she's got coming out I produced is called Be Real. So look out for that. It's coming out later this month. I think November 16th is the release date now, but check the website for that. And yes, we will continue, and until next time, peace and God bless.